So our second speaker for today is Vienne Lin from the University of Bath, who will be talking about students' willingness to communicate. So you should be able to share your screen. I've made you a co-host. Great.
My screen.
Can you speak up a little bit, or unless it's just me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Vienne, and today I'll be talking about student willingness to communicate. And especially, I would like to introduce two games to see how we might be able to enhance student WTC. So Um, this is a brief introduction about me, and I'm a doctoral student in education at the University of Bath. And so why I would be interested in WTC and class participation. And so let me talk about my story. And I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I used to sit in a quiet classroom, and I didn't actually see not participating actively as a problem. Sorry, in the past. Yeah, and I always see someone who raise their hands and participate actively. And the things change until I study abroad in the US as an exchange student. And so when I arrived there and I see almost everyone participated, and they seem to come to class with really great preparation. And even if they didn't, they talk and participated naturally. And so I started my class participation plan by writing a memo each time. You need to put up your hand or answer a question at least one question for each class. And so when I did that, I felt really satisfied, and I would reward myself by playing the swing near my dorm. So I actually, the school was a bit stressful, but I was always the one who played the swing happily after the classes. And so according to my personal experience, so I would say that my enhanced WTC was somewhat influenced by the learning context. So shifting from being the majority of non-participants in Hong Kong, perhaps to the minority of non-participants in the US, that really stood out to me. But I would like to argue that this awareness and also change of behavior would not come naturally or automatically. And now we have to talk about willingness to communicate. WTC refers to a person's tendency to talk or not to talk. In first language communication studies, this intention to speak in daily situations can be largely attributed to your personality. If you think you are a quiet person and you probably don't talk, like to the stranger or in the classroom, you probably don't talk also. But then when we think about the WTC construct intersects with second language acquisition and the communication context shift to the classroom settings, the tendency to talk become more complicated due to a combination of factors. So question for you is, what factors do you think would influence student readiness to talk? Anyone could unmute yourself or put your response in the chat.
I'd like to say that I think lots of students are really worried about getting the right answer, and it takes a long time to kind of overcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also from the literature, is also about whether the teachers, the lecturer have the enough wait time for them to respond. Also, yeah, wait time, getting to the right answer. Sorry, since I shared the screen, I couldn't see the chat. Are there responses about this question?
Yes, there are many comments in the chat about the confidence of students, concern about being wrong, cultural background, specialized vocabulary, fear of judgment, discussing it first. Yeah, very helpful.
Absolutely. All of these are are some of the reasons. Yeah. Oh, okay. Good work. And so from the literature, based on what you observe from your teaching, and other factors include also include their competence. For example, when some international students study in an English university, perhaps their second language, or they are speaking English as their additional language or second language. Also their motivation, classroom environment. Are you setting up an inclusive or an open learning environment for the peers, for the student to talk? Is it non-judgmental? And probably we need to do some work to set up the right environment for them to talk. And also teacher immediacy refers to the teacher's verbal and non-verbal communication. So that would also influence the way they talk, and of course the peers, because they are not just saying the things out, but also interacting with the peers, the cohort, and all of these could contribute to the individual differences. And so what was the link between the active learning and also the willingness to communicate? I would see it, willingness to communicate is the communication intention. So you are about to talk, but it's all on your mind. You could probably think that, oh, I would answer this question, but you never put up your hand. That's quite often. But active learning, according to the literature, one of the common major component is the class participation, or you can say it as an engagement. But that one, we can see it as the communication behavior. So from the communication intention to the communication behavior, there's a link, and they are not always direct or make it happen if you have the WTC. So what's missing is that they could lack the motivation, lack the right classroom environment or competence. So there are a lot of research studies around this to make the WTC happen, to have more communication behavior. And so in your pedagogical context, have you encountered students who appear to be less participatory, quiet, or even reluctant to talk? And if so, what have you done to engage them? I heard Ellen have done a lot of good work. So what about other colleagues? Was it successful or unsuccessful? And are there any patterns among those who are less willing to communicate? So I think we might not do a breakout room. Perhaps you can unmute yourself and share your thoughts, or in the chat. I'm reading the interesting sharing in the chat. May I invite maybe 2 volunteers to share your pedagogical context? Yes, Paul.
Yeah, hi. Oh, am I unmuted? Yes. Hi. So one of the things I've done is to use Padlet as a sort of question and answer thing, a little bit of a survey within the group. When I start a new module, I'll ask them questions like on Padlets, like what have you enjoyed so far? What have you least enjoyed? What can we do to make things better? These are all, they can put their answers all anonymously, and then we can talk about that more openly. And I find that way students are more likely to engage, having given an anonymous answer. So that's one of the things that I do regularly at the beginning of every new module. So that's worked for us.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. That you're trying to set up an open and inclusive environment for them to participate, and you also take their student voice seriously. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yes, please.
Paolo.
Oh,
Yeah. I just wanted to there were some great comments in the chat, ideas. One of the things I struggle with is sort of those uncomfortable silences, because sometimes we have to just stop talking and eventually someone will come in, but it also feels very uncomfortable, and also you're worried that no one will come in. So I just thought,
yeah. So in the later part, I will talk about the proposed silence game that we might think about it to make it more comfortable by making aware of the silence. And so maybe we can keep going. Yeah. And so I have to say that because I'm still doing this ongoing doctoral work, and I haven't taught any student. I don't have student to teach in my role, but I try to pilot these ideas with the public through the public engagement sessions. So I hope that's okay. I will show you some of the things. And the Chatty classroom competition, by the name, and you can see that is about encourage students to contribute to discussion as much as they can and through the poker chips. And then the second one is the proposed game about making them to aware of non-participation or the significance of class participation, and can the silence be also a meaningful interactive resource. And so this is the Chatty classroom competition. So I actually use it in 4 public engagement sessions, and I use the poker chips with different colors. And as you can see, different colors mean different grading. 10 as the 10, white as the 10, and black as 50. And so some background information here is that because from my doctoral work, I also examine the curriculum. So because in higher education in Hong Kong, particularly in the university under examination, and then I realized that maybe students are not participating enough, and class participation is actually one of the most commonly assessed tasks. Is listed as an assessment task. And so it's almost, I analyzed 35 course outline, and out of 35, guess what? It's 34 of the course outlines also assess student class participation. So it's not just participating or not participating, there are also implications about not participating. And so for the percentage, it could go from 5% to even 25% of the course overall course grade. So I could say that class participation is really a topic in my study. And so I use so I need to think about how you could assess class participation, because this is an oral performance or a performance in real time. It's really difficult to assess. So I think about, perhaps we could use the poker chips, because you really have the concrete things to evaluate the participation, but also you can calculate afterwards, but also trying to use some games element to enhance student participation. So I've tried that in the 4 public engagement sessions, and mainly 2 rounds, June and November. And you can see it's a small group setting, perhaps 7 to 8 people. So probably if you want to use it in your teaching context, it would be something like tutorial, smaller group discussion. Sorry, let's go to the next. And so this is an interactive session. So to create a space for feeling how WTC and class participation can be assessed. So for my setting, out of 8 participants, 7 of them could speak a second language, and you can see the range of the age is quite varied, but that might not apply to your teaching context. And so when I told them that, right now I'm going to present my work, and I will be do quite a lot of talking, but I will also give you space to ask questions, to answer your questions. And so But then you have to think about how we can assess class participation in that situation. Then the participants asked me 2 particular questions. Were there any assessment criteria? And how should we assess? Should we do it individually, peer, or self-assess? And so for the first question, I literally told them that because I'm still doing my work, I still don't have assessment criteria, but then they were very shocked. And you know, when you try to present something and they assume you to have something ready, then I said, no, we are going to co-create. And that's part of the fun thing that we can do it together. Then I said, sorry, perhaps you can think about creativity, criticality, usefulness, relevance to the point, to the questions, and so they said, oh, okay, we can try, but they were like very not confident in evaluating each other's contribution. And then initially I thought maybe I would be the teacher in the group, then I will assess them by giving them the poker chips. But somehow they said, oh, we wanted to do peer assessment. Then I said, oh, okay, we will do it. That's why they think about how they could assess each other. And so that's how we did. So each participant was asked to provide rationales for their decision making. For example, when I asked them question or invite them to chip in to share their thoughts, they would keep talking, taking turns. Someone might be quiet because they might not responsive to certain questions. And so for somehow we stop at some points because we think, oh, a lot of people have contributed, and then we have to stop and evaluate what was being said. And then like in the picture, they try to give each other's the poker chips according to the weighting. Then I ask them why, because they think the answer is interesting. Okay, 10 is really innovative because they never heard of that. Okay, 50 out of no reason, perhaps, but that's okay. Because I told them that assessment is always subjective, and you can't really it's also relevant to your personal experience, really up to you. And so we try to take turns. To be honest, for the first session in June, they try to peer assess each other. They were quite nervous because they just don't, including me, we are not too sure what would happen because I just try to pilot with a group of people with no criteria, and then we play the game. But they were very excited because it's new, and then we try to set the rules together. And in the picture, as you can see, is the second round, and they were more confident and comfortable about doing this round. And we don't do it mechanically, like stop, give the chips like that at each point. Then we make it flow more naturally. And so in the second round, we feel more confident in assessing each other. They can try to say that, oh, because I think this one is really interesting because something. So this exercise could also enhance, not because they have to active listening, they need to evaluate each other. They have to participate with active listening, and they also need to give responses like why. So they really focus on the whole situation. And so at the end, they actually we have to calculate how much they got each time by the end of the session. I remember for June's session, since I piloted for the first time, I put a prize, but the second time no prize. But with the tea, as you can see, and the cups with some food, and then some feedback is Vienne had us all participating fully and turned the wallflowers among us into butterflies. I think they really enjoy the game, even though they might have different range of age. But it seems that it's working somehow. So you probably can think about maybe the poker chips or the way that make students have a role to play in the classroom, or the space, the dialogic space would help them to engage more. And so yeah, the second proposed game, I also have to be honest, I'm going to trial in an upcoming public engagement session in June. So, but I've got the idea because I've done 4 times with the Chatty classroom competition, and they participated really actively, assigning the chips. So I think, oh, why not have a silent game? Then I keep talking, then I turn around and look around, ask question, like looking at Paul, but then I keep talking, and then I instruct you not to participate. Then you have to keep your mouth shut. And I think it's quite interesting to do that. And when you look around and you try to give the floor to the people, but then you try to make them, now for 10 to 15 minutes, you are not talking. You are just listening. And then, but the key point is about the debriefing after this exercise. So perhaps for some really talkative students who have been raising their hands, participating, they would say, oh, that's too hard for me. Not a thing for me. It's really hard to inhibit from not talking. But for those who are less perhaps participatory, they would see how does a quiet classroom look like, and you will make all the people not talk at the same space, and that will be quite awkward, I think. But you can keep it 10 to 15 minutes, and afterwards you can do it with the debriefing. Is about ignite that conversation. How do you feel about participating or not being able to participate, and invite them to talk. And I imagine for those who are more quieter may say that, oh, I didn't really think of not participating would cause this kind of imagined scenario, and they feel the silence quite awkward. Or you can ask them, I would also say silence is actually healthy, because in the classroom you can't have everyone talking all the time. You need some pauses, and you need some silence. That's normal and healthy, I would say. But to what extent would that silence make an issue? Is like you are expecting them to give you the feedback, whether they understand or not, whether they could contribute to bring a more fruitful discussion, to get the flow, to get the class going. So you have to think about from your perspective, but also from the student perspective. And I would say we can always accept or acknowledge some kind of silence, but not too much. But that's really also subjective and depends on you and your student. And so here comes the final discussion and some reflection. So WTC is always relative and also relational. So for example, if I see myself talkative, there must be someone more talkative than me. So I try to talk a lot, but there must be someone. And it's also about relational. I'm not just talking, like raising my hand, saying things out, but I'm also talking to the teacher, the lecturer, but also your peers. So it's always about the interlocutors. And so also about active learning, I would also say it's also subjective. For example, if I'm very quiet and less participatory, I make myself to answer your question once, I think I've done a great job. But for those, when you look around, they put up their hand 10 times. I'm not going to compare myself with them, but I will see, oh, I've been very actively participating. But where's the line? You don't know, actually. And we actually need to talk to them. What does it mean to you to be participating actively to different students and also teachers? Is really, I would say, it's really about your background. how you your expectation, so different people's expectation. And so I would also think about what other forms of class participation, because in the classroom we always want someone to talk is about the oral communication or written communication, if that's on the blackboard or some kind of padlet and other things. Could we also think about active listening, note taking? Maybe someone would prefer taking some notes before they can speak or contribute, or multimedia contribution, active listening, even eye contact, gesture. When you see someone doing gesture, oh, she's nodding her head, maybe she's attentive. Yeah, you can do that. But maybe you think that, oh, I couldn't really be multitasking. I'm teaching, asking question, giving feedback, and I also need to think about how to respond as a teacher. But then I also need to look at other people's contribution. But I would say verbal is the main one, but can we also think about the alternative forms of class participation? And so at the end, I think it's also very important to co-create a participatory classroom. So it's about setting different environment, open, supportive, and inclusive environment. And you could probably use this game, maybe silence game or chatty classroom competition, 15-20 minutes, doing it as an ice-breaking or in some activities. But I think it's about having the expectation, making it explicit, but also have the space for them to contribute. So here are the references, and the useful link is actually my blog post about the public engagement using the poker chips, and I will share it with you at a later time, maybe on the Padlet. Thank you so much. Any question?
Great. Many thanks, Vienne, for your talk. Are there any questions for Vienne? I know that some people had to leave, so we're sorry we ran slightly over time, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, don't worry if you don't have question.
Well, at least the comments are very positive.
Yeah, I will have a comment because I don't take verbal communication as the only way to talk. I will see the chat. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Also, just to add, if you have any feedback for Vienne's or Helen's talk, please feel free to fill in the feedback form for us.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Great. So again, I'm really sorry we ran slightly over time, but it was worth it. Yeah, sorry, I was just reading at the last comment. Great. So thanks again, and we'll see you around.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.